up basically moving into Eisenhower's administration, and basically the treaties are renewed every 10 years, supposedly.
Okay.
So when Eisenhower realized that he couldn't really get out of this and the treaty, because he was dealing with, shadow government and, the Bilderbergs and the Rockefellers and, the Illuminati, basically, he signed this into executive order, and Captain K, otherwise known as, actually Randy Kramer's, otherwise known as Captain K, was a part of that. And basically, it didn't go according to plan necessarily. He wasn't too happy with the way things went, but the hope was that it would keep the checks and balances, basically monitoring what MJ-12 has been doing with the alien technology. And now, because alternatives 1, 2, and 3 were set up, alternative 3 being connected to going off planet and going to Mars, which was established during the Eisenhower administration, because that agenda got totally infiltrated and became more about getting as far away from Earth as possible to then create New World Order, the special section that Ike set up also had a lot of different articles and different things established that if things had gotten too far, they would be under legal authority to be able to disclose everything that's been going on. And so basically, he was manufactured into a specific program, and it was a super soldier program, but it was a benevolent super soldier program called Project Moonshadow. And it was to offset some of these trained assassins and trained, slaves, basically, to implement this. Because in order to stop something like that, you have to kind of match it. And even though they didn't want to, they really didn't have any choice. And so they work with the extraterrestrials that are like the cancer fighters in the universe. And so now, because things have gotten really, gone too far, they're under legal authority to disclose things. So he's not coming out as a whistleblower. He's still dealing with, brigadiers and colonels that are briefing him constantly, and he'll share pretty much anything. I've gotten to know him really well. I've met him in person. We had him on our show, and we did a roundtable. And basically, he was in a 17-year training program and was then called up and carted off to the Lunar Operations Command to be parceled into the Earth Defense Force. And the parcel that he was sent to was Mars, to basically defend the Martian settlements. And I asked him, well, why would you be guarding the settlements if the special section wasn't really going for this anymore? And he said basically to keep check on them and to keep tabs on them. And when they saw where it was going, that's when the legal authority to disclose all this came about. Not a lot were willing to come forward, but he was, and I think he was actually asked to come forward. Basically, they have to answer to MJ-12, but they're also there to keep them in check. So it's just like a chess game, and it's very interesting. But I would definitely encourage listeners to check out his interviews. I know him personally. He's just a person of integrity. He really cares about the human race. And when I asked him, well, what place do you have with Alternative 3? He said to me, basically, my position is to stop it, So it's all...
You get him on this show.
Yeah, he'd be perfect. I mean, you'd have a great time with him.
Well, I just was looking online, and I saw that he was on the Clyde Lewis show, which I am now in competition against. But it's fine. Clyde and I are good friends. I've been on Clyde's show, and he's just a lot of fun. But I was reading here, Captain K of Mars. I just want to read this to the listening audience here. This was on Clyde's website. He goes, in the 1960s, there's a plan devised by the U.S. government to have in place a conspiracy of denial with regards to the possibility that the new space program would discover the possibilities of life elsewhere in the universe. This plan, provided by the Brookings Institute, was completed in December of 1960 and pointed out a very real fear of social disintegration in humanity discovered in its cosmic Soyam proof of extraterrestrial life. The Brookings report was very clear when it suggested that the anthropological files containing many examples of societies sure of their place in the universe which have been disintegrated when they had to associate with previously unfamiliar societies, exposing different societies in different ways. Needless to say, the guardians of intelligence suggested that if the U.S. space program found evidence of alien life or technology, that it would would be advisable to withhold that information. Nearly 5 decades later, much of the Brookings Institute laid out for the space program still holds, and science is still in the act of denial of any intelligent life in space. Since the Curiosity rover landed on the surface of Mars, there have been a number of curious anomalies which have been sent back to Earth that have created all sorts of buzz. And I want to talk about that, guys, because, and we're going to bring Laura back here, but we, the Truth Frequency Radio Network, we actually were one of the networks that revealed this weird space rat on from the Mars Curiosity rover. And actually, when I was doing videos, one of my particular guys that we were investigating Nibiru, we were coming across some areas in Mars through the rover that looked like beheaded evil, like horns, like these, it looked like they actually had horns in the faces, but it looked like they were beheaded, and it looked like a crash site of sorts. And that whole area where the Mars Curiosity rover, if you really look at it, it looks like a crash site. What do you think, Laura?
Yeah, I've seen a bit of that, and it does. It absolutely does.
It does, doesn't it? With all these weird rock formations, and some of them are they're cut. I mean, it looks like a laser beam had cut some of these rocks. And there's some weird stuff. I mean, we saw that one that looked like the Tuscan Raider, and then now there's this new one there. It looks like a traffic light. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it just came out. It was the Mars rover took this shot. It looked like a traffic light. I'm like, we all know at one point in time there must have been whenever I think of Mars, I always think of Total Recall, and I guarantee. Well, we have evidence to prove that we have been working up there for a long time.
Yeah, and there used to be life on Mars. They destroyed their planet way back when. And it's been a huge psychological cost for the indigenous races that are still on Mars. They've had to live with that destruction and a lot of that suffering for a really long time, and they're still, recovering. And what's interesting is that the wounded spirits still reincarnate here and on Mars, and it's very difficult for them to be able to move forward with the with human settlements on Mars, trying to take over Mars to put this planet in a new world order. So it's not really the beings on Mars that we have to be that concerned about. They're pretty pissed off, and actually Randy has had to contend with a lot of them,
right,
and has been to battle with them. He's had his limbs blown off and grown back. I mean, they have advanced technologies that we see in sci-fi movies, and he's had his limbs blown off so many times he can't even count.
Yeah, and that's
just unbelievable.
I know, that's crazy stuff. Michio Kaku talks about these, type 1 civilizations, type 2 civilizations, type 3 civilizations, and that we are considered a type 0 moving into a type 1. To think that we are the only life in the universe is pretty egotistical.
And it's pretty scary, because if we've got radiation in our waters, chemtrails in the sky,
yeah,
we have nothing but wars and duality, right, and the mentality that we're functioning on, it'd be scary if we were the only ones. So I don't know how that's an ego boost to anyone, and yet it still is.
Yeah, they're like, well, if I can't see it or if I can't prove it, it's not real. Well,
there's creatures, beneath the ocean that you'll never see that you probably feel are real, because it's a little bit more easy to accept. But,
right,
we got to open up our minds. We're not using all of our brains. We're not functioning on our full DNA capacity. And the only way to really upgrade these things is to begin to expand into these greater truths. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's like not everything's going to resonate. There is disinformation. But, work on intuition, work on your own self-knowledge and awareness, and it'll help you to find what truth is and what isn't. I mean, but you have to have an open mind.
Well, that's what I said when at the top of the hour, I said, everybody has to find their own spiritual path. It's up to you. It's not up to anybody else to tell you. And I think that's been the problem with religions over the decades, over the centuries, or the millennia, or whatever. It's been a big problem, and especially Christianity. I mean, the Catholicism and the more wars have been, more people have died over the name Jesus Christ than there has, and I don't even know what to say about that. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that is not anything about Christ consciousness. It's actually a major negative alien agenda. And alien always makes it sound like it's separate from us, but we have to understand it's our own negative ego that enables it. It's our own ignorance. It's our own disempowerment. And we have to get those things back. We have to purify our ego. We have to become empowered. We have to allow life and nature and Gaia and spirit give us what we need to refine ourselves and to walk a path of integrity and compassion and love for one another, because love is spirituality, wisdom, compassion, not books, not dogma, not all this stuff that's getting thrown at us, and people fight over it. And it's just like, are you kidding me? And you think there's no ETs or higher races out there? That's sad.
Well, and I know I've seen reptilians. I've seen shapeshifters. I know they're real. I mean, I have had my own UFO experiences. You saw those weird X-rays of mine, right?
Yeah.
Weren't those things a trip?
Yeah. How long ago did you post them?
Brooks Agnew believes that it's, and Andrew even believes that it's a multidimensional type thing that they're seeing in my body. And if a lot of people out there don't know about this, but I had these weird X-rays done. I have a back problem, and I went in and got my an MRI, not MRI, just a regular X-ray done. And it was weird because the radiologist tech, he's taking the shot. He has me standing up, and he's like, "This is really weird. Have you ever had any back surgery done?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Well, this is really, really strange." And he's like, "I see these weird. It looks like and to describe it, it looked like almost like a mechanical spine connected to my spine." And it was the first shot of it was crazy, and I never got hold of that first shot. It was like he deleted it, and I'm like, what? And so he took the shot. He thinks, because he's like, it's a technical problem with the, but I've never seen this. I've been an X-ray tech for 20 years. I've never seen anything like this. And he goes, it must be a problem. So he takes another shot of it, and you see it again. And it's not as prevalent as the first one, but you still see it. And then he does this close-up shot, and it looks like a Superman symbol right between my L4 and L5.
Oh, my God.
And it looks like they're, like screwed in. You can, like little nuggets on my hip. And, I'm like, man, what are we looking at here? And he's like, I have no idea. And then I bring it to the actual orthopedic, and he scratched his head. He's like, I have no idea. And he just kind of blew it off,
Wow.
And so I show it, to Alfred. Alfred does a big show about it. And then I showed him to Brooks Agnew, and he's like, oh, my God, this is really the strangest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And it really makes no sense, And then we had this weird thing in my foot. And as we all know, we've had some problems with me over the years in regards to, people not liking what I have to say. And we've had some interesting confrontations. But there was something removed from my foot. And I had met Dr. Roger Lear, God rest his soul. He had just passed away. I met him and not Cooper, but oh God, why can't I think of his name off the top of my head? Anyways, I was at some conference in LA, and Lear was up there, and I showed Lear the pictures. And he's like, I showed him the pictures of the foot, and I showed him the pictures of the spine, and he looked at the pictures of the foot, and he says, these are really interesting. He says, I want you to come up. I'm doing this thing where I guess Lear does this magnetic thing to check for the alien implants. And he's like, I really want you to come up. And he's like, well, I'm going into surgery next week. And he's like, well, make sure you get me all the information. So he's like, but do me a favor, make sure that when they remove this article from your foot, that it goes to me. Mm-hmm. And make sure that you make this aware to the doctor. Make sure that the doctor's aware of this. And so I told the doctor, and me and my buddy Mark, who has been my friend here in Long Beach for quite some time, he brought me to surgery, and we both said, we want the piece. Once I am done, please give me the piece that you're taking out of my foot. We want to have it analyzed. And so when I got done with surgery, I'm waking up in the recovery room. And I said, well, where is the piece? And they're like, oh, well, we we destroyed it.
Huh?
Like, what? You destroyed it? And they're like, yeah, we destroyed it. And I said, wait a minute, I told you I wanted this piece. Well, we can't give it to you because it's a biohazard. And I'm like, no. That is a piece that's coming out of me. And that is mine. And so I got really irate and ticked off about it. And so when, like, a following day or 2 days later, I went in for a checkup with my podiatrist, And I sent an email to Lear, and he emailed me back. He's like, well, we don't have the item now. We can analyze it. I'm like, yeah. And so we're really weird. We're in, and Mark can profess to this. He was in the doctor's office with me. When we're in the doctor's office, him and I are like talking away, and all of a sudden, a helicopter, and we're not near we're by a hospital, but we're nowhere near a helicopter window that of the podiatrist's office.
Oh my God.
I'm like, what the heck? And Mark's like, what the heck is that? And I'm like, oh my God, this is craziness. And from that point on, we have never figured it out what that was. But I'll tell you one thing, since that thing has been removed, my frequency, my vibration, my, even though I'm suffering from some other health issues, my whole mind, it seems like I'm released of whatever was holding me down.
Wow, that's amazing. Really, truly.
So, to me, it doesn't matter, whatever. If I had some sort of alien implant or, Alfred thought maybe it might have been something to do with Morgellons or anything to that. And the description of this thing, it looked like an RFID. That's what when they drew it out, because the doctor drew it out. To me, it looked like he says, well, it was a piece of glass, and it was all the way. And here's the thing. Here's the weird thing, guys. It was all the way up against my foot, my bone. It was going into my bone. That's what was hurting, because I wasn't able to walk. I was literally getting paralyzed from this thing because it was going into my bone. Well, there was no scar ever of anything of. And how does and here's the weird thing. The minute they remove that thing, I haven't been able to bend my left big toe since I was 11 years old.
Wow.
And now I can bend it.
Wow.
So who knows? Maybe,
that's huge.
Maybe when I was 11, something happened.
Right.
And, I've always had this weird feeling with extraterrestrial beings. I've always felt a connection to the other side we might be able to talk. And my grandma used to play with Ouija boards and all of that sort of stuff. She used to connect, did automatic writing. And so I'm a true believer in all that stuff. And I've seen it, and what the other side is, what the, as you said earlier, you're not scared to die. I'm not scared to die either. I mean, I think it might, I think it'd be a party.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, even like the greatest scare, it's like Ebola. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I mean, whatever. Like, and I haven't drank in a long time. I might have some whiskey before I go if I get infected. I mean, it's just like, I've died so many times in this one body. Right. I've seen the other side. And, everything that you're describing too just shows that you have galactic consciousness. That's what it is. It's able to reach into what's beyond, but it's like, it's also a part of what we're made of. And that's just so excellent. But yeah, I mean, it's just, we're infinite beings. We're on a grand adventure. We need to embrace that more, because there's major manipulation connected to, just our fear of death, and it controls people. Well,
yeah, I mean, they the lovely Catholic Church, makes death like, you better get saved or you're going to go to the fiery pits of hell.
Yeah, that's why nobody wants to die. They're afraid of the life review. They're afraid of ending up in like the fiery, like inferno of hell. And
you could create that consciousness.
You can, and that's the thing, and that's. And hell's on earth right now if you carry a frequency that's going to take you into those experiences, but it's also an initiation. We have to. One of my favorite quotes is, religious people fear hell, spiritual people have been there, done that, and have came back from it. Or
got the T-shirt.
Yeah.
Well, even Christ, when he died, he had to do 3 days in hell.
Right. And the goddess story of going into the underworld, the Persephone story of getting abducted by Hades, it's all part of that soul alchemy, going into your depths, going into your own darkness. And yeah, there's gatekeepers. Yeah, there's influences and forces that want to control you, but you got to go in there to purify it and get your power back. Well, and as long as you're being controlled, it's going to feel like hell.
Yeah, my grandma said, she's like, don't go to the light. Go through the dark first, then you'll find the light.
Oh my God, she told you that? That's hilarious.
Oh yeah. Well, we got about a minute before we go into the break, but yet real quick, right before, she was suffering from dementia, and I was filming her, and I was like her last final stages, and I have to show you this video. It's kind of sad, but she starts. I say, "Hey, Grandma, where are you?" She's like, "I'm in an airport, and I'm going nowhere fast, and the hybrids are here." Huh? Here's an 92-year-old woman that never really ever talked about aliens, a cop, and here she is talking about hybrid aliens, and she had, she's in an airport going nowhere fast. That to me sounds like a holding center, kind of like what John Lear talked about that spiritual holding center right behind the moon.
Oh, wow. That's wild.
That's what amazing stuff. So anyways, guys, you guys are listening to 32 Degrees of Insanity right here on the Truth Frequency Radio Network and kbh.org. We are having a wonderful conversation with the great-granddaughter of Dwight D. Eisenhower, Laura Eisenhower. It's always a fun time to have her on the show. If you guys want to listen to the archive, you haven't had a chance to listen, you're really getting intrigued in what we're talking about here, you can always listen to find me on the Spreaker, and I put that up, that show up pretty much right away. I try to do it as quickly as I can, and that is our archive page at www.spreaker, SPREAKER.user.the message on Spreaker, or you can listen to the archives here on KBeach, or you can listen to the archives over on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. We're going to be back another half hour, 10:27 the p.m., 10/2/2014. Donnie Gilson, 32 Degrees of Insanity. We'll be right back.
The Jeff Baker Show, Monday through Friday on Truth Frequency Radio.
All right, guys and gals, we are back for the final half hour, 32 Degrees of Insanity, 10:31 of the p.m., 10/2/2014. You are listening to kbh.org right here at California State University, Long Beach, broadcasting live from the studios at the California State University Student Union Center on the first floor. And we'd love to see you if you always want to stop by and give us a wave while we're doing the show, or just even come by and listen in the lounge down here. We got pool tables. We got everything going on down here. So definitely come on down. Also, just want to tell you guys, if you guys are, we're right at midterms, guys. So if you want to do some late night study and you want to just come on over to the University Student Union, Monday through Thursdays from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., you can do studying. You can do it right here, 24 hours a day. And then, of course, from August 25th to December 8th, we are doing meditations on the quad every Monday, and it's free for California State University Long Beach students, so definitely tune into that. And if you are listening to us on the Truth Frequency Radio Network, you want to stick around and listen to some of the new I think Clyde Lewis is following me right after this. And if you're a Cal State student, if you want to listen to Truth Frequency, you can do that. Or you can listen to Sex at the Beach. And Sex at the Beach is going to be following me right after this. So we definitely want you to join us and be part of the family here as we grow as 32 Degrees of Insanity. A lot of great show, a lot of things happening. If you want to find out what the calendar is, keep up with the calendar, www.32degreesofinsanity.com, or you can find me on kbeach.org or kbeach.org, and you just go to the talk shows, and go to 32 Degrees of Insanity. And I wanted to talk about that Meditation Mondays. It is every Monday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Student Rec and Wellness Center. So anyways, without further ado, tonight we are having Ben is MIA because we're just having some technical issues on his side. We'll bring Ben back next week. He's going to be a good show with Joanne Kramer. We'll bring her on next week. It's going to be a kind of a very interesting show again next week, Thursday, 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, going all the way to 11. But as we have our wonderful guest for the last half hour here, and I'm going to let her take the helm once again, Laura Eisenhower, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much. It's good to be here.
Oh, it is so wonderful. I always just have so much fun with you.
I know.
we
talk about the most serious stuff, and yet we giggle along.
Yeah, giggle and have some fun. And as you said, as we were talking in the break, you said that I have this. We talk about some very serious subjects, but yet as we were kind of comparing me to Alex Jones, and Alex is kind of the fear mongerer, but yet I am kind of the guy that I like to have a relaxed attitude towards this stuff, because if we don't have a relaxed attitude and we get all fear, or we don't know what's going to happen, then our energy, our vibration within our own selves, and that affects us health-wise in every direction.
And it's so incredible you get that, because a lot of people don't. And the intensity about the information and the fighting over the information and the slamming and the smearing and just the fear and the anxieties, it's like, wow, that's not really being awake. It's being informed, but you've got both. So it's great. It really is.
And not saying that I haven't gone through my fair share of frequency problems, but that's the learning curve that you have. And for us that are out there in the public trying to inform others, well, we have the other forces that don't quite like that. And you and I have struggled with troll activity. You have, we talked about this a few months ago, but you have been attacked on all levels. It is amazing, kind of the parallel that you and I have had.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I can't even get over it. I mean, it's every day, and I really don't let it get to me. And just like you said, you just have to not let it affect your frequency. You can't let it bring you totally down. And of course, we're human, and there's going to be moments where it's difficult. But it just strengthens me, really. You can't destroy truth. It is what it is, regardless of people believing in it. And there's things that are in me that you can't destroy or take away. And whether everybody disappears from the face of the earth, what is true still remains. So.
Oh yeah, it's I say if we all died tomorrow, I'm good. I'm good. I know that I have done. There was a story that I it was a church one time, and it was about this little girl that died, and they were at the gates of heaven, and everybody was at the gates, and they were saying, "What have you done to get into heaven?" And people would go, "Well, I was a nice person, I had a good family, I did this, but what have you done?" And nobody could answer the question. And then the little girl comes up, and she was like, the question was asked again, "What have you done to come into heaven?" And the little girl goes, "Well, I loved humanity."
Aww.
And that's it. That's it. That's all we have to do is love one another.
Totally. And just devoting to, the right path. You don't have to do it perfectly. The thing is, we're not here to attain perfection. We're here to just be devoted. We're here to self-correct. We're here to really develop ourselves. And there's a lot of compassion and unconditional love in that process. But if we don't devote ourselves, we tend to lose ourselves. But devotion creates a relationship. It creates a relationship with the earth. It creates a relationship with spirit. And when there's a relationship, there's the ability to work together and to bounce back and to, come back to center when one falls apart a little bit. Yeah. It's the home base that we have to come back to, but without knowing to devote to it, other things can be placeholders for that, and they can be very destructive energies that replace that core center that we need to stay in touch with, because that core center connects us, on a vibrational level to what's happening on this earth and the stargates opening, during this critical window period that we're in, and also to the incredible energies that are streaming in from the galactic center. And balance is everything. But we're going to get off balance a little bit. But as long as we know what to focus on and what the home base is, we know how to get back. And we don't want to look to religion. We don't want to look to government as that home base, because it's completely leading us astray. And I think most people know this. Even if you're not fully awake, I think most people get that the powers that want to be are not out for us. There are many, though, benevolent beings within those systems that are doing their best. And the more we get to know the people we're dealing with, the more we can, be supportive. But we really have to become our own leaders. We really have to, become that embodiment of that spiritual path. It has to be beyond belief. It has to be embodied. Yep. And
Do you think that we can reach this in our lifetime? Do you think we're just planning it? I have a feeling this is kind of what I believe, and I don't know if you believe it, but do you think that we're just planting the seeds right now, and maybe 100 years from now we'll maybe achieve this?
Yeah, on a lot of levels, I feel like on an energy level we already have, but physical matter moves so much slower than consciousness, and it's just trying to catch up.
Yeah.
And, and we can't base our successes on what we're seeing outside of us. As long as we, just like you said in the beginning of the show, if we stay, strong and we stay consistent and we stay determined and focused and committed, that's all it's really going to take. And then things will really catch up. It's when we lose patience and we fall apart and feel defeat that these greater forces, these lower forces that aren't greater actually, but they're greater on the level of having a little bit more control over this 3D world. Yeah. They get the best of us, but we're superior in the sense that we're multidimensional and we have direct connection with spirit. So do they, but they don't want to play in that energy right now.
They don't want to play nice.
No, and they have all the options in the world to, turn in that direction. And that's why I don't want to create an us and them. I want to embrace that. I don't want to push it away.
Yeah, because we are told, to love one another. And we're